Before 1990, India was a very different country. Imagine wanting to start a small factory to make biscuits. You couldn't just start. You needed a special permission slip from the government. This permission was called a license. Getting this license was very, very difficult. Businessmen had to wait for years. They had to visit government offices many times. This system was known as the license Raj. It was like a king who controlled everything with licenses. The government decided who could make what, how much they could make, and even what price they could sell it for. This made doing business very slow and complicated for everyone involved. This tight control was meant to protect Indian businesses from big foreign companies. The idea was to help our own industries grow strong without competition, but it had the opposite effect. Because there was no competition, companies did not feel the need to improve. If you wanted to buy a car, you had only 2 or 3 choices. You had to wait for years to get one. The quality was often not very good. The same was true for telephones. Getting a phone connection could take a decade. Life moved at a slow pace, and there were not enough goods for everyone who wanted them. The government owned many big companies. It ran airlines, hotels, steel factories, and even bread-making companies. The belief was that the government could do a better job of serving the people. However, many of these government companies were not efficient. They often lost a lot of money, and this loss had to be paid for by the Indian taxpayer. This meant there was less money for important things like building new roads, schools, or hospitals. The system was not creating enough jobs for the millions of young people who were entering the workforce each and every year. Ambition was stifled, and dreams were put on hold. So, for many years, India's economy grew very slowly. We called it the Hindu rate of growth, a term that suggested we were content with a slow pace. While other countries in Asia like South Korea and Taiwan were racing ahead, India was walking. People had dreams, but the system made it hard to achieve them. If you were a bright young entrepreneur with a new idea, the government's many rules and regulations would often stop you before you even began. It was a time of great potential but limited opportunity, a giant nation waiting for its moment to awaken from a long economic slumber. By 1991, India was in deep trouble. The country was facing a major economic crisis. Think of it like a family that has spent much more money than it has earned. India had very little foreign money left. We needed this money, mostly US dollars, to buy important things from other countries, like oil to run our cars and factories, and machines to help our industries. We had only enough foreign money to pay for about 2 weeks of these essential imports. If we ran out, the entire country could come to a standstill. It was a very scary situation for the nation's leaders. Several things caused this big problem. The government had been spending too much money for a long time. It was borrowing heavily to pay its bills, creating a huge amount of debt. At the same time, a war in the Middle East, the Gulf War, made oil prices shoot up. This meant India had to spend even more of its precious foreign money to buy the same amount of oil. Furthermore, many Indians who worked abroad and sent money home, which was a big source of foreign currency, were affected by the war and could not send as much. The country was on the brink of financial collapse. The situation was so bad that India had to pledge its gold reserves. The government had to physically ship its gold to banks in other countries as a guarantee to get an emergency loan. It was a moment of national shame. It was like having to pawn the family jewels just to pay for daily groceries. This shock was a wake-up call for everyone. The old ways of controlling the economy were clearly not working anymore. The government realized that it could not continue on the same path. A big, bold change was needed, and it was needed immediately. This crisis became the reason for a revolution. It forced the leaders to think differently. The Prime Minister at the time, P.V. Narasimha Rao, and his Finance Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, knew they had a historic opportunity. They decided to dismantle the old system of the license Raj. They understood that to save the country from this crisis and to build a better future, they had to open up the Indian economy. They had to trust the Indian people and their entrepreneurial spirit. The moment of greatest danger became the moment of greatest opportunity for India. The year 1991 marked the beginning of a new chapter for India. The government, led by Dr. Manmohan Singh, introduced a series of bold economic reforms. The first major step was to end the license Raj. Suddenly, Indian entrepreneurs no longer needed a license from the government to start most businesses. This was like unlocking a cage. For the first time in decades, business people were free to pursue their ideas, invest their money, and build new factories without waiting for years for a permission slip. It unleashed a wave of energy and creativity across the country that had been held back for too long. The next big step was to open India's doors to the world. The government lowered the high taxes on goods imported from other countries. It also started welcoming foreign companies to come and set up their factories and offices in India. This was a huge change. Before, foreign investment was seen with suspicion. Now, it was seen as a way to bring in new technology, create jobs, and make our own industries more competitive. Companies from America, Europe, and Japan started to see India as a land of great opportunity, a massive market with 1 billion consumers waiting. These reforms also reduced the role of the government in business. The government started to sell its shares in many of the state-owned companies that were not doing well. This process is called privatization. The idea was simple. Let private companies, which are focused on being efficient and making a profit, run these businesses. This would make them stronger and stop them from being a drain on the government's money. The government's job was to become a referee, not a player. It would set fair rules for everyone but would not try to run the businesses itself. These changes created a new sense of optimism. The focus shifted from control to freedom, from scarcity to abundance. The reforms sent a clear message to the world. India was open for business. It was also a message to Indians themselves. Your ambitions are now valid, your dreams can be pursued. The stock market soared, new businesses sprouted up in cities like Bangalore and Gurgaon, and a new middle class began to emerge, full of hope and aspiration. It was the start of India's economic miracle, a journey that would transform the nation in the years to come. The impact of these reforms over the next 2 decades was nothing short of revolutionary. The Indian economy started to grow much faster than ever before. Cities transformed. New highways, airports, and shopping malls were built. The biggest change was the explosion of new jobs, especially in the services and technology sectors. Cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Pune became global hubs for software and information technology. Young Indians with computer skills found high-paying jobs in brand-new offices, working for big international companies. This created a new, confident, and aspirational middle class. For ordinary people, life improved in many ways. Suddenly, there was choice. Instead of waiting years for one type of car, you could now choose from dozens of models from around the world and buy one immediately. Getting a telephone connection, which once took a decade, now took just a few minutes with a mobile phone. Supermarket shelves were filled with products that were once considered luxuries. This access to goods and services, combined with rising incomes, improved the standard of living for millions of people. India was no longer a slow, sleepy economy. It was a dynamic and vibrant one. However, the story is not perfect. While cities boomed, many villages were left behind. The benefits of this rapid growth did not reach everyone equally. Farming, which still provides jobs for a large part of our population, did not grow as fast as industry and services. Many farmers continue to struggle with debt and poverty. Another big challenge is the gap between the rich and the poor, which has widened. While some people became very wealthy, many others still lack basic necessities like clean water, good education, and healthcare. Creating enough good jobs for all the young people entering the workforce every year remains a huge task. In conclusion, the economic reforms of 1991 truly unbound India. They unshackled the nation from decades of slow growth and put it on a path to becoming a major global economic power. The lives of hundreds of millions of Indians were transformed for the better, filled with opportunities their parents could only dream of. Yet, the journey is not over. The challenge now is to make this growth more inclusive, to ensure that its benefits reach every corner of our vast country, from the bustling metropolis to the smallest village. The work of building a prosperous India for all its citizens continues.